go, I don't know what I expected. Didn't expect that.
This is not it.
Rich Borkowski, take one.
Action.
Cut.
Oh.
Take.
Anyhow, back to the story. I quit. I went home and told my wife I quit, and she's like, "Are you out of your mind?" She goes, "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to be an airline pilot." So we got to know the Waco Police Department quite well because they were there 3 times a day.
And the local hooas.
Yes.
That's kind of what being a Rusty Boat's all about right there.
There you go. Holy crap.
Yeah.
The Rusty Bolts. And that's where it came from. It's just like...
It looks totally natural.
Hey guys, Bogey Biker.
There's one thing I cannot do is pick my nose.
Yeah.
If we need to reshoot anything, I'm available.
Yeah, honey, I'm the bogey biker, and you know I'm here to stay.
All right. Welcome back to Between Two Bikes. My name is Jack, and I am the...
Bogey biker.
Rich loves that. I got my buddy Rich in the hot seat today. Welcome, Rich.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, Rich might be... I've said you might be the most unique Rusty Bolt. By unique, I mean you didn't grow up here.
Like the Dos Equis kind of unique, or...
We don't have a bunch of world travelers in the group. Rich actually grew up in Iowa. You're an Iowanian, correct?
I did,
Yeah?
yep. I'm a Yankee compared to the Texans right here.
Anything north of Dallas is a Yankee. So how was growing up in Iowa different from being in Central Texas?
You know, it was pretty much the same. I grew up in a small town on a dairy farm. The town was about 1,500 people. I played football for a 1A school. Grew up on a dairy farm out in the country and had a lot of different similarities as far as the weather, things of that nature. Of course, it's a lot colder and drier up there in the wintertime, more snow and everything, but yeah, pretty much the same.
So your parents still live up there? Is that
They
correct?
do,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
People ask me about your left hand.
Yes.
And he said, how does he ride a motorcycle? I don't know. I said, he's the best. I don't know. He's in the conversation for best motorcycle rider of the Rusty Bolt. So tell him about how that, it was a shark attack or something, wasn't it? Or was it?
Well, there's several stories. One was, I was up in the Arctic with a bunch of scientists taking ice samples. I was the last one into the polar bear cage. That was one. Another one, I took one for the team in the ocean. Yeah, that was a shark story right there. But in true honesty, growing up on the dairy farm, obviously there's a lot of machinery.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of work to do. And
So you were like a baby?
I was 2 years old. My dad still has not forgiven himself for it, even though I love him to death.
That's terrible.
But at 2 years old, my mom was in a hurry to go somewhere. It was wintertime in Iowa, butt-ass cold, and she takes me down to my dad and says, "Here, I got to get going. I'm late for something," and take him, you know.
Yeah.
So my dad, you know, he was actually grinding feed, and for those who aren't familiar with that, there's a big machine that takes actually whole kernels of corn or whole ears of corn and grinds it down into a powder that we fed to the cattle in the wintertime due to the shortage of grass and everything else. So a friend of his shows up and he's not paying attention. He's holding one hand, and to keep my hands warm, he put his gloves on me because my mom forgot to. But I had this big old droopy glove on there, and he wasn't paying attention. I reached up, and that glove got caught in a chain and gear, and so you see it just went straight across right there.
Oh, yeah.
But it happened at 2, and the best thing that ever happened to me was having it at 2, because having it happen now and trying to readjust and learn everything, I don't know any different. I grew up with it, and I got just enough to pull the clutch in and ride with the bolt. So there's one thing I cannot do is pick my nose.
Yeah.
I usually get a bloody nose trying to get up in there.
So did you start riding motorcycles while you were in Iowa as a kid?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
The first motorcycle I had, I think I was 7 years old. It was a Honda XL70 back in the day. And that was back in the 70s. Yeah. The last motorcycle I had before we moved out here was a Kawasaki ZL1000, which was kind of a cruiser style of the Ninja. in so many words.
Yeah.
But we got out here to Texas and met Mike, which has been a whole nother story right there.
Yeah, we'll get into all that.
Yeah. But ended up with the Harley, and away we go.
So you lived in Iowa. You met your beautiful wife, who's in the studio audience, who's also a Rusty Bolt. She rides a Heritage Classic. Is that
Yeah,
right?
Softail.
Yeah. Heritage Softail.
Yep.
And then y'all moved to California. So how long did you live in California?
We lived in California for 28 years.
So what's the good parts about living in California?
You know, when we moved there, we were young, our hair was on fire, we didn't have kids, responsibility, and it was before California became expensive, tax-ridden, and quite frankly, stupid.
Yeah.
You know, so I would say the first 20 years of our lives, we met really good friends. We had kids, our kids had got involved with the sports scene and the whole bit, you know, a lot of the public events. And all of a sudden, you know, it's like we're parents now, we're raising kids, we're putting them through these crowded schools that are really not getting good results. We're not happy, we're paying exorbitant amounts of money to live there.
I mean, it's a beautiful state. It's a shame that it's been destroyed.
Correct.
By dumb politicians doing dumb stuff. But so the story, we live in a small town in Central Texas. People don't move to a small town in Central Texas and make friends very quickly. So I want you to tell how you ended up here.
I get this question a lot.
Yeah.
And first of all, you know, it's a typical reaction, you know, a Californian moving to Crawford, Texas. It's just like, yeah, you know, and you find yourself like, okay, tiptoeing around. And before we even moved, I even told my family, I go, we're moving to an area where it's probably going to take us 2 to 3 years to kind of blend in, and then probably another couple of years to start meeting some friends and becoming part of the community, because these are very tight communities, and for good reason. But we decided, you know, getting back to the insanity of California, we were both going crazy out there. Our kids weren't getting what they needed education-wise. We were just paying. No matter how hard you worked, you paid more. And I remember sitting with my wife, or I should say laying in bed with my wife. She used to watch Fixer Upper back when it was a big phenom coming on, before they changed and got real big and everything. And the thing that I always joked about was they'd always come on, well, with your all-in budget of $3,000, you can buy 400 million acres of land, this 20,000 acre house with a lake on it, and we got enough money to remodel the whole thing. And I'm like going, you know, I love Texas. You know, back in the day, I was flying commercially for American Eagle out of Dallas, and I fell in love with Texas back in the late 90s. And I kept pushing her. I'm like going, man, Texas. Nope. You know, I love it here, you know, blah, 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 blah. Well, we got to the point, you know, it was like going, all right, we're ready to make a change and do something. And I get a call in my office one day, and she goes, I need you to take this day to this day off. I go, okay, I'm free.
Your wife?
Yes,
Yeah, Michelle,
my wife.
yeah.
And she goes, I go, what am I taking this time off for? And she goes, I think I want to go see Texas. And I'm like, oh, here we go. You know, it's like, but I'm like, we'll just go out there. So we flew into Dallas, and living in a big city, like around San Diego, we knew we didn't want to live in Dallas. So we spent 3 days in Waco, got around a car and drove around and saw the area. Yeah. Then we went to Austin, then over to San Antonio.
And Seattle of
yes,
Texas.
Exactly. It's like, oh, it hurts right here.
Yeah.
But we ended up in San Antonio, and we worked it out. We dropped a rent-a-car off there, and we had a blast, just the two of us. You know, we had somebody watching our kids, of course. But we flew home, and we landed back in California, and she goes, I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. And I go, that sounds pretty good. 400 years she came back, and I go, what was it? She goes, there's a line like 16 miles long, blah, 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 blah. And I go, did you have fun on this trip at all? She goes, I had the time of my life. And she goes, what's wrong with you? And I go, we're back here. I go, we're bumping shoulders, we're running into rude people, there's lines, you know, and everything. I just spent the best week of my life with you, and now we're back into this, you know. So I'm not kidding you. 2 weeks later, she contacts me in my office again. She goes, I transferred my nursing license to Texas, and I just went, my jaw hit my desk, and I'm like, holy crap, this is on, you know? So while we were out here, while we were driving around, we were just kind of looking at areas, and we happened to run into this real estate agent, and we go, you know, we'd like to come out and look at houses at this point. And she's like, yeah, I can show you. What are you looking for? I go, we want some property, a house of this, you know, on and on and on, good school district. And when we got out here, this is the best part of the story. We were trying to save some money. We're like going, we're not going to stay in a hotel that much. We're going to be out looking at houses and doing things. So we booked a room in the Super 8 off of I-35. So we got to know the Waco Police Department quite well because they were there 3 times a day.
And the local hooas.
Yes. Apparently they were there for 15 minutes at a time, but you know, needless to say, they kept showing up. Big mistake on that part. My son goes, Dad, I don't think I can live here. I go, son, I go, sorry about that. But we were down to 2 houses that we were looking to close on. One was in Lorena, which is another good school district, really nice area, and Crawford. And when it came down to, my wife and I, Michelle, sat down on the pool deck at the house that we owned. We kind of kicked our feet off the edge of it right there, and we go, plus and cons.
In Southern California.
Well, we were sitting out here, which house do we want?
Oh, yeah.
And we're like going, this house in Crawford, for some reason, just feels right. It has the property, it has the pool, it has a shop built already, big house, on, and it's well in our price range. And then we found out how good the Crawford School District was, and it all came together. So when we decided to put an offer in on the house to show you how God works and how he wants you in a certain place at a certain time, I called my real estate agent while we were in Texas. He put a for sale sign in our front yard in the California. 21 days later, we were packed and out and headed to Texas. That's how quickly that went.
That's insane.
We got here faster than they could close the mortgage loan. And that's when we learned about the first bit of Texas hospitality. The seller of the house said, move in, we don't want anything for it, just give us a cattle lease for a year and we'll just call it even. And then the hospitality just came on and on and on, and here we are.
A lot of you are from small towns around the country. Nobody moves to a small town and fits in the way y'all have. And again, we like to make fun of California people moving here from Texas, but
For us, again, God wanted us here, obviously, because the dominoes just fell perfect. I've never had that happen before. And the neighbors we moved into, which this is a real quick story, Mike Westerfield, which is our president, he's my neighbor. And this is what started the whole doggone thing. But when he found out that Californians were moving in next to him, he didn't sleep for 2 weeks. And had I known that, I would have played that to the T. I would have walked down there. Where's the closest tofu bar?
What would you do?
You like trees. You don't like guns, do you? You know, stuff like that. But Mike and Shirley, some of the best people we met out here, they took us immediately under their wing. And they took us around, introduced us to people. And then I met him and found out that he had a twin brother. And I was like, oh, God. 2 of you.
So you mentioned a little bit, but you were an airline pilot for American Airlines, correct?
That is correct. Just to give you a little background on my history, as far as my resume goes, if you will, I did grow up on a dairy farm in Iowa. We talked a little bit about that. You work 25 hours a day, 8 days a week for very little money. My family was quite poor, but they always provided. I had a lot of love, a lot of support. We always had food, a roof, and everything. So I finished high school. I turned down 4 scholarships to go play D1 football.
I didn't know that.
And I thought, you know something, I'm too smart to go back to school. You know, I'm young, I don't have any direction. So I went back into the industry that I started in 1983, which is auto body repair. Went to Colorado for a few years, and when I was in Colorado, she's waiting for this. I'm telling you. We always have an argument, but I'm just gonna set the story clear right there. I met the love of my life, my best friend. And we, as young people, didn't know how to communicate. You know, we loved each other. We got along real good. We were hanging out, having a good time. Well, we ended up moving into it together for a short amount of time.
Living in sin.
In sin, yes. So we ended up, you know, not getting along real well, and she ended up moving out with her parents to San Diego, California, which took us to California. And I will set the story straight on film today. I did miss the hell out of her, and I knew that was somebody that I wanted to stay with. So I followed her to California, and I kept doing auto body work until I just couldn't do it anymore. I did it for about 13 years, and I got this wild idea. I saw an airplane flying over, and I go, I'm going to be a pilot.
Is that really true? See,
It's honest to God true.
I honestly never talked to you about how you became a pilot. That's unbelievable.
To put it real short, I was working at the body shop, and we had an area where we'd straighten out the frames and the damaged cars and stuff like that on frame machines. And my actual spot was over here, so you had to walk across, and there was an open area. And these planes kept flying by, and I'm just like going, that's what I want to do.
How were you at the time?
I was 28, 6, somewhere around there. My mid-20s, mid to late 20s. I quit. I went home and told my wife I quit, and she's like, are you out of your mind? She goes, what are you going to do? I'm going to be an airline pilot. So I quit doing body work in 1996, and I started taking flight lessons with a little bit of money that I had saved up, and I went to the local college and started taking classes to get my degree, because at the time they required a 4-year degree to get hired at the airlines. Yeah. So I did a 4-year degree, got all of my flight training done, and I was accepted into American Airlines in 1999 to do an internship with them. At the end of the internship, I got an interview, and I got hired at American Eagle, which was their puddle jumpers, basically. I was flying the Saab turboprop back in the days before they had jets. So I did that for about 3 years. I jumped ship and went to a startup airline called National Airlines, flying 757s. And this little thing called 9/11, you might remember it, the terrorist attacks, kind of set the airline industry, you know. Being a startup airline, they declared bankruptcy and went out of business.
I declare bankruptcy!
And this was November of 2002. Our first son was going to be born in April of 2003, correct? And I have no job. She's on disability because she can't move around the emergency room as a nurse. And our savings account was like a napkin in a forest fire. So I'm like, I gotta do something, and I gotta do something now. And long of the story short, there's a lot of bad stories, ups, downs, ins, outs. But in 2002, I started my financial planning and management business, and I'm still doing it, and that's what I will retire doing. So I'm a wealth manager, and I do a lot of good financial things for people at this point.
He handles all the bogey backer, all the money that's coming in from being the bogey backer. He's trying to weed through all of that. I know it's a full-time
Hey, it's old man, it's a mess. Where do I find the time?
I think I made $28 last month.
Compounded with interest.
Yeah.
You have $28.13 now.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of my career path. And, you know, again, I'm just going to say it. I've already said it before. I couldn't have done it without my wife. I mean, she was the support, the backbone, and she still continues to be. So.
Well, another thing you don't know about Rich is he enjoys the finer things in life. Rich is I don't know what you call a good chef. What's like you call a chef like a good chef.
You have
he's a good cook. I don't know what.
Well, you have chefs and then people who like to cook.
Yeah.
You know, chefs make a living at what they do.
Yeah.
I really enjoy cooking.
Well, so he eats salads and vegetables and stuff like that. So we give him a hard time for that. I was not a Scotch drinker until I met Rich, and we had a Scotch tasting over We had a Scotch tasting over at Rich's house, and I learned a little bit about Scotch. So what are you drinking? You're not drinking Scotch. What kind of bourbon are you drinking tonight?
You know, I'm drinking my everyday drinker. I come to find out that if I got the expensive stuff, drinking it every day, I can't afford it. So,
yeah.
But quite honestly, I'm drinking a 1783 Evan Williams. And for the money, pound for pound, it's probably the best everyday drinker I've ever had.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to have a good night, a Glenlivet 18, you know, good Woodford Reserve, maybe a Buffalo Trace, you know, something along that line.
Yeah.
With a decent cigar, I mean, you know, it's a whole different story, but Evan Williams for tonight. One thing I did learn over time, there's an old saying in the financial industry. I always tell my clients, wherever you go, fly first class, otherwise your children will. And I kind of look at that when I eat food, I drink wine and bourbon and hang out with my friends. You know, it doesn't have to be the finest thing in the world, but I want to enjoy myself.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've all worked really hard to get to this point, and there's no reason why we can't enjoy some of the finer things, if you will.
As I understand it, you came up with the name Rusty Bolts. Is that right?
I did, yes. Yeah. It was the stupidest damn thing, too. You know, I'm a typical guy out in my shop. I have 4,000 tools, 400 boxes of bolts, and I'm looking for one. And I'm like digging through this box going, so it's taken a half an hour longer than it should have.
Yeah.
But I'm looking through and I go, holy crap.
Yeah.
The Rusty Bolts. And that's where it came from. It's just like, at the time, it was just Mike and I riding, and we'd cruise around, and we'd go around and go, probably heard of us, Rusty Bolts. Yeah. Everybody's like, no.
Now, what happened? There's a new restaurant in downtown Crawford called the Amsler, and you went there the other night. You went there the other night, and people came up to you and said something about the Rusty Bolts, or
they did,
or the Bogey Biker YouTube, or what?
Well, two different times. Michelle and I went on one Thursday night, and then the following Thursday night, we took Gerald and Renee, which Rusty Bolts are you going to meet in another episode. Yeah. But both times, when I walked in, two people came up to me and said, "You're that guy in the video right there." And I'm just like, well, that's not thinking too much of it. Yeah. But a week later, another person comes up to Gerald, and of course Gerald, Mr. Personality, you know, but he was like going, the guy kept walking back and forth, and he's like going, "You're that guy in those motorcycle videos." He goes, "Where do you guys go?" And Gerald's like, everywhere from, you know, McGregor to Arkansas to, you know, it all depends. And he goes, "I can't ride long, but, you know, I'd like to ride with you." And Gerald's like, "Oh, okay, well, yeah, you know." But the point is, complete strangers are coming up to us after 6 months of doing this. Yeah. And saying, "I know who you are. You know, you're on that video right there."
Oh, yeah. Have you been a part of a riding group or something like this? Have you ever experienced anything like this? Or
I never have. Yeah. And this is all new to me. Yeah. But, you know, we didn't know this was going to happen.
No.
I mean, honestly.
No.
And it's starting to catch on. And, you know, you go back to when I met y'all to begin with. I mean, you and your brother Jay, neither one of you are like, "Nah, we're not motorcycle guys, you know, this, that, the other." Yeah. And as the years went on,
we're not dirtbags. We're sophisticated folk.
Yeah. What's a joke? The porcupine and the dirt bag?
Now I'm a dirtbag.
But you know, after meeting both of you and hanging out with you all this time, and then forming this, here we are. It's the weirdest thing. And it's so quick too. All of us, you know, either our kids are gone, we have kids in college, just getting out of high school. We're all kind of in that group right there to where, you know, something we can afford to do this. We're starting to get the time to do it. And say it what it is. Yeah. We get along really well. Yeah. I don't know. This is the first thing I've done in a group sense that hasn't had any drama in it. I know. You notice that? It's like, "All right, let's go over here." "All right, you know, let's eat over here." "Hey, sounds great." Yeah. You know, but there's nobody arguing or anything. And God, it's been the strongest brotherhood.
The only drama is Rich likes salads and shit.
And 70-degree riding weather.
Yeah, yeah. If it's over, what is it? If it starts with a,
It starts with a 3, 4, or 5. I'm not going to ride.
yeah.
But 6 and 7s, yes.
His wife will ride. She's like a tough person. Rich, I mean, it's got to be, maybe that's the Southern Californian. It's got to be San Diego weather for you to.
I think it's
ride.
Texas weather. I mean, I'll sit outside in August.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Oh, my
but
God.
I am a fair weather rider, and I don't know what happened, but it's just the way it is. So I've missed a couple of good rides because I'm a fair weather rider, but
Yeah.
But yes. But yeah, it's. I tell you, this whole thing with the Bogey Biker and Rusty Bolts coming together, I never saw it happening
I know.
at all.
I know. It's pretty crazy. So what kind of cigar we got here? What is this?
This right here, interesting story again. It's always an interesting story with me. But one of my best friends is a Lutheran pastor. He was up in Dallas on a meeting, and he just happened to go by this it's a house basically, but this house had a big sign out that said hand-rolled cigars and said Faustino on there. A gentleman by the name of Jose Faustino is a third-generation master roller from Cuba. That's here in the United States. And he hand rolls each one of these cigars.
All right.
And you call him and you just tell him what kind of cigar you like. He has all kinds of fillers, wrappers, and everything. And I fell in love with them. After smoking cigars for, 380 years or something like that. These things will probably get me one day, but I'll have a smile on my face.
Yeah.
But it's some of the best true cigars that I've ever had. Nicely wrapped. Good burn, good flavor, everything.
Yeah.
So, his original place is in Royce City, and he just opened up a new place in Dallas. So,
Oh, yeah.
good for him. But again, this is a broadleaf. It has a filler from Cuba with actually a Mexican wrapper, and one of the best cigars I've ever had in my life. I thought I'd bring it for the show and share it with my friend right here. But good smoke, good flavor, and Jose's a hell of a guy. Gives me a good deal on these things. So,
What would you say to people who are afraid to buy a motorcycle or afraid to do whatever they want to do?
well, as you know, all of you, we communicate through movie lines. I mean, funny, serious, this, that, the other. We all know this. It's a lost art, unfortunately, with the new youth coming out. But one of the favorite lines out of all of my movies, which has a kind of comedic sense and it's serious too. Everybody's heard of Grumpy Old Men. And there's a gentleman by the name of Grandfather, what's his name? Gustafson, yes. Played by Burgess Meredith. One of the best roles in the movie. But he had a line, and I quote for the show here, "Then one day you wake up and realize you're not 81 anymore. And then you begin to count the minutes rather than the days. And you realize pretty soon you'll be gone. And that, all you have to see is the experiences in your life."
Then one day you wake up and you realize that you're not 81 anymore. And then you begin to count the minutes rather than the days. And you realize that pretty soon you'll be gone. And that all you have, see, is the experiences. That's all there is, Johnny. Everything. The experiences.
Think about that.
Yeah.
We are creating the experience at a younger age. Well, I say younger, but at a younger age. Don't sit on that fence waiting for the experience to come to you. You want that motorcycle? Get it. Get out of your comfort zone a little bit. Lived outside the line just a little bit, and I don't think you'll regret it at that point where you're not 81 anymore.
Richie, appreciate you, brother.
It's been a great pleasure.
And I appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching. We got more to come. Stay tuned. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, honey, I'm the bogey biker. And you know I'm here to stay.